You just keep it simple, right? Treat people like humans that they are and give them the resources to thrive and succeed.
Welcome to the HR Like a Boss video series. If it resonates with you, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, or sharing with a friend. In the description, you'll find a social media link where you can listen to the complete podcast interview. You can also take the HR Like a Boss survey at willery.com/HRLAB. I've embarked on a journey to get to know amazingly awesome HR and business professionals, and these conversations create the foundation for my book on what it takes to do HR like a boss. And on today's episode, I'm so excited to have my dear friend, Brian Rolnick-Fox. Brian is the founder of Nimble Learning Strategies and the absolute best improv coach that I've ever known. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, great to see you. Great to connect with you. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure as well. I feel like we should do like a yes and, right? Yes and.
Yes and. Let's just yes and. I'm glad to be part of a group of people called Amazingly Awesome. I'm glad just to be nominated. So thank you.
Well, that is the definition. If you look in Urban Dictionary, which I know, wow, that's a controversial topic to start off with, Urban Dictionary, but like a boss has the term amazingly awesome in it. So that's our spin on it.
Cool. I didn't know that.
So for those that haven't had the pleasure of spending time with Brian, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days?
Wonderful. Thank you, John. So let me start with the present, and then I'll work backwards. I'm the CEO and Chief Learning Evangelist for Nimble Learning Strategies, and we help HR leaders and other executives close the skills gap around communication, collaboration, and leadership, which are obviously vital for any company's growth. And we offer an approach that to professional development is really, it's practical, it's easy to apply, and it's a lot of fun along the way. And as John knows, the twist of that, why it makes it so fun and practical and easy, is that we use the principles of improvisational theater as a tool to help people build powerful relationships instead of transactional relationships so they can get more done. So that's who I am, where I'm at now. And I've had a zigzag career. I was an actor and writer for 10 years professionally. I worked in the nonprofit space. I worked in public relations, and then eventually ended in learning and development, and now open my own shop.
I always like to start off the initial question at a very high level of how you would describe the purpose of human resources.
You know, I've learned from them, you just keep it simple, right? Treat people like humans that they are and give them the resources to thrive and succeed. That's it. And that's what I would say in a short shot. The follow-up to that would be, I was actually listening to your podcast, and I was then picking up my kids from school, and I paused it so, just so I could be present with them. But on the screen of my radio, it said HR Like a Boss. So my oldest, who's in third grade, Jonah, is like, what's HR Like a Boss? And it's like, oh, well, it's about human resources. He's like, well, what's human resources? And it just, it was awesome. So anyway, of course, I was starting to overthink things, as I sometimes do, way over explaining it. And then I was like, okay, wait, stop. And I was like, what's something he might get? So I said, those, when you were younger, Jonah, those like little connect the dots and then you color it in. He's like, yeah. I said, well, an HR leader connects the dots, and then the executives and the employees, they color it in. And he was like, oh, and he got it. And I was like, wow, that was pretty good. I'm going to tell John about that. So that's how I sort of see what my colleagues do who are HR professionals.
So tell me, what do you think the challenges HR have about connecting those dots? What do you think causes them to have some struggles in that respect, Brian?
John, I think that the main challenge for HR leaders is really complicated. Humans, that's the challenge. I think that, it's really like the old adage, right? That any organization's greatest assets and liabilities are its people. And that's what HR people love to do. And that's what they thrive at. And in a variety of different ways, right? I think inside of that, there's the reason why that can be challenging is that we as humans tend to see things from our own perspective. So that's the challenge, because you have let's say an SVP with 20 years experience, they're forgetting what it's like to be that person at their first job. and vice versa. The person in the first job probably is not getting what it's like to be an SVP who has dozens of people under him or her carrying that weight for those folks, right?
So as we dig into that a little bit further, kind of HR's ability to focus in on the places where they can have the greatest impact on an employee and organization, how would you characterize that?
Right. So I think there's three things. The first one, and probably the biggest one I would say, is how do we cultivate a yes and mindset? So in improvisational theater, it's become a term in the business community of yes and, right? And just to drill down about what that means before I go further, there's sometimes a misunderstanding that you have to say yes to everything. And in improv, as well as in the real world, you don't necessarily have to say yes to everything, but you have to accept what's happening in the moment. You have to accept the other person's reality, to accept their feelings. You have to accept the facts on the ground that you have. And then the and part is the contribution. How are you contributing to that? So for HR leaders, I think that they can have an impact by how do they coach their managers to have that yes and mindset. Because I think as humans, in our DNA, we want safety. And the easiest way to stay safe is to say no. Like that's our makeup. And we have to kind of fight against that. And so what I coach my HR colleagues on, and my clients on, is it's for them to coach further on to their team or their business partners that they're working with, is to say three things when someone comes to you with an idea. So the direct report comes with you an idea, you should say the following three things. So what you're saying is, and then reflect back what that person said to make sure you heard it correctly. And then after you feel like you've got an understanding of that much, you say, so here's what I like about that idea. And ideally you find at least, hopefully the whole idea is great, but if not, find at least one little nugget that's good, and appreciate that. Or appreciate the passion that they have, or the research they did to get into it, even if the idea is horrible, right? But appreciate something. And then the third piece is to tell me more about what it would take to achieve that, and how might I support you in it. Yeah, so the other one is to seek feedback, and this can be formal feedback, getting your trusted advisors before you launch that strategy or whatever, that's great. But I want to focus more on and I think in some ways could be equally important or more important, is the small nuanced ways that we can seek feedback in the moment. Anyway, last one is trusting your gut. And I think this is most important for HR leaders, because in order for you to help other people, you have to help yourself. And trusting your gut is a way to help yourself first. And so, if it's a big situation, I think it's around sitting down, being quiet with yourself, asking yourself, what do my instincts tell me? What does my experience tell me? And then writing that out, and then letting it go from there, and just getting quiet with yourself. And I got this advice many years ago. I love this idea that if you feel like you still don't know, you've got your gut's telling you two things, well, then use your imagination. I'm going to go down the left road and imagine what it would be like to follow my gut in this direction. And then after doing that for a little bit, I'm going to go down the right road and use my imagination to follow my other choice that my gut's telling me about what it would be like. Then your brain's going to kick in, and your brain's going to help your gut going, here are the pitfalls, here are the possible successes. And that you can get a better sense of like, okay, which part of my gut should I listen to? This idea about yes and mindset, seeking feedback on a continual basis, and trusting your gut. That's what I would say HR leaders need for them to help themselves and then help others.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this. So if you could, I know the book and the podcast is HR Like a Boss. If you had a chance to describe someone that does HR Like a Boss, how would you do that?
As I said earlier, I'll start with improv. An improv scene, if we're on stage, John, our goal is to make our scene partner look good, right? And if we're doing that in a reciprocal fashion, then the scene moves forward, right? You're taking care of me, I'm taking care of you. The best bosses actually look out for, nurture, and lift up their teams. So for me, an HR Like a Boss is somebody who's going to look out for other people, nurture other people, and lift them up. And the people I've worked with along the way in my career, colleagues, bosses, direct reports, if we're all doing that, then we're all going to win.
I really enjoyed having you on the show today, Brian. A lot of thought-provoking ideas. A few of them I kind of jotted down here for those listening. So give people the resources. We kind of started off with that. I know the definition that you gave to your younger son was connecting the dots, right? HR does an awesome job of connecting the dots, and then the executives and the people and employees color everything in. The ability to relate to varied perspectives. I think that's paramount, not only within our organization, but within our communities. Come at it, whatever it is, with solutions. So making sure that you're just not a raising my hand with problems, but you got them both up. I see this challenge problem. Let's go ahead and figure out this solution A, B, and C, and then use your imagination when you roll through those solutions. I thought that was an awesome point. I know we dug in a lot on education around relationship building. So we'll have to have a side conversation to see how we can bring some content to the community around that, and having a yes and mindset to keep the conversation going. So I really appreciate you being on the show, Brian, a dear friend and very thought-provoking.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Glad to be here. Good conversation.
You got it. Well, thank you to everyone for checking out today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. And until next time, let's continue to aspire to do amazingly awesome HR.